Well, if you're going through the situation, you've got to know that there is a solution. We often get caught thinking, well, it's either this or that. One of the things that I've been taught is that, whenever you only have two possible ways forward, that's not a solution, that's a dilemma. There's always a third way. There's always another way. You just may not be able to see it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host and special guest, Arthur. What's your last name, Arthur?
Guglielminetti.
Guglielminetti. I'm going to get that nailed down, guys. If you listened to the previous episode we had just before this, it was an introduction to Arthur, his story and who he is. And I'm going to encourage you right now, if you haven't listened to that episode, hit pause, come back to this one, and go back and listen to that episode first. Arthur is an amazing man, and that's going to give you some context on why you should be listening to Arthur and what he has to say going forward. So, Arthur, thank you again for being here with us.
Hi, Doug. Thank you. Great to be here, mate.
Yeah.
And hi, guys.
So today, Arthur, what I want to talk about is something that happens all too often, but we talk about it here and there. It's just not talked about probably enough in my eyes. And here, I'll break down the scenario without listing names. And this is a type of idea. And gentlemen, you guys listening to this right now, I want you to picture when this has happened in your life. And odds are, if you're like me, this has happened before, right? So with that being said, Arthur, I got a guy from the Brotherhood. We talk about the Brotherhood a lot. It's the elite level of men that are coming into, they've completed the activation method. They successfully completed the alpha reset. They've been asked to go up to the next level. Mm-hmm. He reached out to me and said, Doug, I have an issue. My brother apparently last night got really drunk and started telling everybody that he was going to kill himself. He said basically, and I won't go into this, but other stories are similar, that the person wants to end their life. Obviously, this guy was, devastated. He was going to fly out and help his brother right away and what to do. Now, let's give a caveat. The first response I gave, Arthur, was, I'm not a suicide psychologist, professional in any way, shape, or form. I immediately gave him the contact information of hotlines and professionals in his brother's area to see what I could do to help, and said, look, I'm happy to jump on a call, but this is not my area of expertise. Now, of course, a lot of men that go through the Powerful Man programs have had this happen to them. They've been in this situation, but when we get on a clarity call or anything else with somebody who is suicidal, it's not what we do, right? If you've had suicidal thoughts in the past and if you're transitioning past those are things we talk about, of course. But Arthur, what I want to talk about today is, what do you do if you're listening to this, you're a man listening to this, and someone around you, a brother, a coworker, a friend, is suffering, right? Now, it could be suicidal thoughts. It doesn't have to be, but they are suffering. They're clearly suffering and they clearly need help. How do you act in that situation? How do you help guide them?
Well, I think, Doug, the number one thing is just to convey to them that you do actually care and you are there for them. I think when guys go through this type of thing, they usually don't want to open up, don't reach out, and might even think that no one's interested in their problems. So if you're on the other side and you suspect someone is battling, one of the best things you can do, as far as I'm concerned, is to actually show the person that you do care, that you want to help them, that, just to give them an ear so that they can unload. Because a lot of guys, most guys just don't have that ear to unload, just to tell people what's going on in their life, because, you might go for drinks and things like that, but you never get to the real important stuff over drinks. So pulling the guy aside, just saying, I don't know, I see you going through a tough patch, can I help? I want to help. Just showing the guy that you do really care and that you are there for them. That could be all you need to do. Because if he hasn't got a support structure in place and you provide that for him, he may jump at that.
Yeah, so I totally agree. And I think for a lot of us men, right, we go out for drinks and that's when things may potentially come up, right? And then when we get drunk is when the real kind of, I'll call them demons or dark places, may start to open up. The filter comes off. And it's unfortunate that that's usually what it takes. But all too often that's when it happens. I can recount several times of going out for beers or drinks with somebody who's invited me and come to find out that they're going through a divorce or a nasty part, they got fired or laid off or something's happened traumatic in their life. And then obviously being someone who's coached before, you have the ability to sit there and listen. So gentlemen, what Arthur's saying is exactly right. Be that kind ear, listen. And then also I would say encourage them, right? Give them that hope of the future, of a brighter future, of a better tomorrow. As Mel would say, Mel, coach in The Powerful Man, would say, as the sun rises, so will I. It's the same idea. You want to make sure that they know this. And something I do, Arthur, often when this situation arises, and maybe I'm fortunate that it doesn't arise all that often outside of my coaching work, is I talk to them about things that to be hopeful for, people in their lives that love them. I let them know I love them and that I want them to be around. But I also let them know about other things that are going on. If they have kids, I remind them about the kids and what they do for their kids just by being there as a support structure and a role model, and how they could be or can be this comeback story, so to speak, depending on what it is they're going for, right? Because a lot of times in this situation, the man's, really feeling desolate, right? They feel like there's no solution, there's no problem. The common story we hear is, well, life would be, or they would be better off without me. They would have the insurance money. They would, whatever the story is that we make up in times of desperation, but remind them and encourage them of the things that really matter. Look, your kids don't care if you don't have any money, right? The simplest things are what they care about. They want that father. And I'll go into more depth here, Arthur, but I know you have a couple cents that you probably want to add on to this, but what else can guys think about when they're encountered with this situation?
Well, if you're going through the situation, you got to know that there is a solution, right? You may not be able to see it where you're at, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a solution. We often get caught thinking, well, it's either this or that. And one of the things that I've been taught is that, like, whenever you only have two possible ways forward, that's not a solution, that's a dilemma. There's always a third way. There's always another way. You just may not be able to see it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So you have to open up to somebody who may be able to help you find that additional way. A lot of the problems we have, once we kind of change our perspective, raise our consciousness, raise our awareness around it, actually aren't problems as bad as we think they are. Even bankruptcy. We've had guys that have been bankrupt, and yet you see them 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, they've got a whole new life, a whole different life, and they're living life again. So it's not the end of the world, and so there's always something else there to be able to move forward on. It's never between a rock and a hard place. Where there are options, we can help people, and if you are on the outside seeing somebody battle, that's what you've got to be conveying to them, that there is hope. There is hope and there is way, because every problem out there has a solution. And whatever people want to do has been done. You just look on any bookshelf nowadays, we have solutions and answers to a lot of the questions that we battle with. It's just getting it fed to us in the right way, with the right person, the right process. But in order to do that, we've got to open up ourselves a little bit, and we've got to help other people to open up to it as well, just a little bit, so they can see actually there is another road to take.
Yeah, and I think that's such, he's not here, and we jokingly, of course, we're all men, so we make fun of each other, but Tim does such an eloquent job of being vulnerable and authentic and showing all sides of him, that I think that allows men to also step into their areas and share. And so, guys, the reason I share that with you is I think that's also something that's worthwhile doing. We do this naturally, right? As guys, someone tells you about a problem, you kind of share another problem back with them, right? It's reciprocity. We're also being authentic. But this is also an opportunity for you to, even if you're listening to this and you're saying, well, geez, I don't have anybody in my life like that. Well, chances are you do, and they just haven't reached out to you, right? Somebody's going through something right now, whether it's you listening to this or someone in your area. This is your chance to be a leader and be a little bit more raw and authentic and share more of you. And I'm not talking about here going out and just spilling your life on Facebook, right? You don't have to do that. But being the authentic you and not just the representative of you, and sharing with the men around you kind of what's going on in your life, truly. Not one of these, hey, how you doing? Good, how you doing? When everything's crumbling in the background. We can all relate to that. I've certainly been guilty of that more times than I'd like to admit. But this is a way also when a man cries out, whether he's been drinking and he says something, it'd just be better without me, I think sometimes, or whatever that little slight comment might be. This is a good opportunity for you as a man, as a leader, to also share a little bit about your story and yourself as you go through it, and do it in a very vulnerable but authentic way, because I think that's truly powerful in doing so.
Yeah, I think when we are open and authentic, we give permission to other people to do the same. And sharing a real story about you, sharing your truth with somebody is such a rare gift in today's world to give to somebody that's suffering, because being open and authentic just provides a bridge to that other person on a heart level that usually is not there with anyone. We so get caught up in the superficial communication. Hi, how you doing? Yeah, how you doing? Yeah, no, good, everything fine. What's the latest football score? Blah blah blah. Stuff that doesn't really matter. And when we can really connect like true human beings, heart to heart, and have those difficult conversations, that we can make up a lot of distance, and we can connect and help people from that level, so much more. Because at the end of the day, we all have the same kind of issues, problems, wants and wishes. We all want to be loved and to love. We all want to live well and have a beautiful life. And so there's a lot of commonality between all of us. And once we seek it out and we come from that ourselves, then we can really create that bridge and help people to such a larger degree.
No, so true. I think, again, I'm going to reiterate this again and again, guys, but if you do encounter somebody that is suicidal, get them to the professional help they need, the actual professional help. A lot of times, it's hyperbole, right? Someone just crying for attention. However, don't take the risk there. Get them to a professional. So with this particular guy I'm talking about, Arthur, it's I just glanced down at the clock because I know you have a conversation with this guy's brother today scheduled, because he's actually going to go through the activation method and join us in November at the Alpha Reset, we believe, at this point. But right now it's just a conversation to be had. So something else we think about when someone's reaching out and they're kind of saying, hey, look, throw me a lifeline. This isn't usual for men, right? It's not our natural, in today's society, it's not a natural thing. So I think it's also important for us to remember, one, as we said, be authentic, let them know there's hopeful, but also remember, if someone reaches out and gives you a little bit of information, one, they're trusting you, but two, they're also they're really saying something bigger, right? You don't say, hey, I'm going through a hard time, unless you're really going through a hard time, or you've done enough work on yourself and you're working with other men that you can be vulnerable and open, which is what, 1% of 1% of the men out there in the world. Those are the leaders. So I think it's important for us guys to know that, when a friend reaches out and says, hey, I'm going through a rough spot, or this is what's happening, mostly it has to do with business, money. I'll tie those two together, or relationships, right? Those are the two big ones for us guys. But also just to recognize, if they give you that window to open up, there's probably something much bigger behind the scenes there. They're just saying, hey, here's a softball here, so to speak. Let me see if it's safe to engage in this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is where you have to be really, really present, I think is the word, to what's happening, and allow them the space. Because they might, throw you that softball, testing you, whether you are really up for listening and helping, and not just casually throwing in like how you doing. And so you need to respect that, and you need to provide the space for that. And from there, you can give them an opportunity to open up much more and actually discuss what is really the problem.
Hey, sorry to interrupt the show, But I wanted to ask you a question. Do you ever feel like something's just missing? Like there's something more out there and you just can't put your finger on it? I totally get it. Go over right now to thepowerfulman.com/freedom to discover the system that other businessmen just like you are using. We've included 10 case studies, 10 men just like you who have found the solution and have found their way on their path. And we want to share that with you. Go over to thepowerfulman.com/freedom right away. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, and it's very true. And so the other thing I do, Arthur, and I'd like to know what you do as well, and obviously through the Powerful Man, we have a somewhat of a process that we take through to make sure nothing falls through. But one of the things I do is follow up, right? I think that's a key element. Showing that you care, as we talked about, as you mentioned, Arthur, but also following up again. And oftentimes the way I do that, because I like to joke around. There's anybody that's ever met me knows that's one of my forms of communication. Yeah. So I'll send funny memes. I'll do all kinds of things. I'll even pick fun at whatever they're talking about because that's just who I am. And people who know me know that, right? So I'll do something funny, but also maybe invite them to an event or just send them hey, just checking in on you. How you doing? I also want to be respectful of people's space, but letting them know, more than once, guys, letting them know that more than once you care. So it's not just something, hey, I care about you. Because remember, when you're going through a hard time, your focus narrows, right? Your field of vision narrows, and all those people tend to do is focus on the problem. And that nice thing you said to them an hour ago may have already gone to the wind, so to speak. And they needed that reassurance and constantly hearing that and constantly being reinforced. So follow up and making sure you follow up a few times, I think, is really important. And if you haven't had coaching training, communication, and relationship training, as all married men or any men in a relationship should have, in my opinion, if you haven't had that, you should know that us guys, we don't communicate as often, right? It's just what we do. We say something, we think it's understood, we move on. You want to reinforce this, right? Communicate multiple times so it's actually heard, understood, and embodied. And I'll even go as far, Arthur, when this has actually happened to me, when someone's reached out to me, I'll go to the point of probably being annoying, that I check in that often to the guys like, hey, look, Doug, I got it. Cool. We're good. And then I'll check in again because again, that's just who I am. So I would say, in your experience, Arthur, do you find that the follow-up and check-in is important?
It is, and I just want to say that you do a really good job of that, Doug. So I just want to give you props for that. And I think it goes towards providing you have to be consistent for the other person to build up trust that you actually do care and you do mean it. And at one time you asked about it, it wasn't just a once-off. And so you want to create that structure to support that person, and you do that by being present and consistent with them. So as Doug says, you want to do it a couple of times because obviously you care about this person, and and I love when we say love is a verb. And if you really care for somebody, then you got to take certain actions to convey that love. And depending on where the relationship is, it's going to be different actions. But if you are worried about this person, you want them to feel supported and cared for, then you have to show up consistently to them so they get that, because they can have a really good day today when you show up, and then in 5 minutes they could be having the worst day possible, especially if they are depressed. You go through so many different cycles within a 24-hour period. And so I'm not saying you want to be there for 24 hours continuously, but you do want to be checking in, on a regular basis so that they feel that you're in their lives, that you do care, and they can reach out to you when they're ready to.
Yeah, I think it's important. So I'll share a personal story for me. Last October, I had a friend's partner. Yeah, they're not married yet, but a friend's partner reach out to me that they were worried. So of course, immediately I got on the phone call with her and said, hey, what's going on? And they were worried and said, hey, look, he's drinking extremely heavily. He's making conversation. I'm scared. I'm scared for him. We're good, Doug. In other words, our relationship is good. I love him. That's not a problem, but I'm just worried for him. And so what I did in this case, guys, and Arthur, is I reached out to him immediately, just checking in. A few jokes back and forth, and then he started to open up to me. Now, this is one of my best friends. I've known him for a long time. I won't give any more detail to protect his anonymity, but then we started joking back and forth, and he opened up and shared with me what's been going down, what's happened, what have you. And so one thing that I've noticed over the time is oftentimes when men are going through this, they turn to some form of sedation, which tends to be alcohol and drugs, in my experience. Could be something else. We talk about pornography being sedation, just checking into video games. But alcohol and drugs seem to be the tie-in that I see the most, but especially alcohol. Right? It's also a depressant, which further takes you down that rabbit hole of, life sucks and the darkness. And so what I did with him, Arthur, is I started saying, hey, look, man, I'm gaining weight, things aren't, I want to do and I knew more than he knew I knew at this point, which is, I think also, he didn't know that I had this conversation. He didn't know that I knew his drinking had taken to a whole nother level. He shared a little bit with me, but his partner shared a lot more. And so I said, look, will you do me a favor? I need someone to support me in accountability. Let's go for a whole month sobriety challenge where we're eating clean food, we're working out, we'll exchange workouts, we'll check in, we'll be accountability partners back and forth. And through this process, right, going through, he eventually kind of fell off the wagon. We did it again. But through this process, he's now been sober for a while and probably doing really well. Not to mention, I lost a few pounds too on this whole deal, which wasn't a bad experience for me. But I think it's that level of, hey, I'm in this with you. Let me ride on this journey. I love my wine. I like to have a beer with friends, but it's not a big deal for me to give it up either at all to support somebody else. So I think what I'm saying in this situation, sharing my experiences, is not only follow up, as I said earlier, and as you said, but also can you actually be in that experience with them and be their support structure where you guys are going through an experience together, an adventure or what have you, to build that bond and that camaraderie.
I love that. I love that idea because you can do you create so many different experiences, and which are going to help by themselves. Obviously you, Doug, helping him get more fit, that's also automatically going to help from the drinking perspective. He's not going to want to go there as much. And as you were talking about that, I'm thinking, yeah, of course, you could take the guy out for a walk in nature, whether it's a walk on the beach, on a daily basis, or, if you've got a park near you, trees and all that. I mean, that is such a healing experience. And if you do that regularly, then you're really helping him by just taking him there. And maybe you might not help him with his exact problem, but you're helping him feel better. And from that position of feeling better, he may be more resourceful in stepping up to sort his other problems. Or at the same time, in that walk, after an hour walk, he may be willing to open up. And so there are multiple opportunities and advantages of doing something like that. And it's going to be up to you to encourage that, to come up with that idea, because he probably won't. And so, do some planning, make an effort, and create some experiences for sure.
Yeah, it's been great. One of the other things I did, which it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but I shared some of the podcast episodes with him. It's embarrassing to admit because I'm on them, right? So, but it's also having the guests like you and Tim on here, or and actually having him see another voice, right? Because this is a way of giving passive coaching, right? They get to hear it almost. I like to think of it as an entertainment value, but hopefully that something will resonate. And I always say, and it's been said to me multiple times by other coaches of mine, if you can get one nugget, right? One nugget out of an experience, maybe it's even a weekend, let alone a podcast, just one little thing, then it's well worth your time. And so sharing these podcast episodes, and what I do is I create conversation pieces around them. I not only share this one, but I share others, but then creating a conversation piece. So if you're listening to this, share this one, share the one where Arthur shares his story about where he's 26 and, the gun's loaded in the dark room. I won't go into any more details. If you haven't listened to it, go back to the previous episode and go in there. But where we're actually looking at, share the episode and then talk about it. Send it like, hey, check this out. I'd really like to know what you think because it's something that's on my mind as well. Then you're opening up the conversation in an intellectual way, in a very soft, inviting way where they're able to listen, digest the information, And then you can have a conversation about a third entity, right? It's not about them. It's not about you. You guys can make fun of me. I'm totally cool with it. I do. But it's that third entity conversation that removes the blame, the guilt, the shame. And now you can talk about this and let other things emerge, right? Let conversation pieces emerge. And the last one I'll bring up here, guys, and is let them see the other side, right? And let them see the other side. This is exactly why we put up case studies. We put up case studies because we want you guys to see, here's a man, a real flesh and blood guy, just like you, who is going through this, who went through the same crap that you're going through and made it out to the other side, right? Here is his story. And these guys aren't going around wanting to carry a trumpet or a big banner to show everybody their story. They only are showing their story because they wish someone had showed them, right? They're showing this as a way of like, hey, I wish someone would have come to me earlier and let me know that this was possible. So I encourage you guys, go over to thepowerfulman.com/freedom. You can actually see some of those case studies that are on there. Also on the website, you can find them there. And in the Facebook group, those guys are active in there. They don't get paid to do this, right? This is a movement of men. These guys are not getting paid. They don't get anything. We don't even send them a cookie, right? They are actually doing it because they want to help more men just like you. They want you to know, hey, brother, I'm here, hand out, raised. I have a business. I have a family. I have a lot of things that I want to be doing, but I'm taking time out of my day away from my kids, away from my business to be here for you, to show you that there is another side. So gentlemen, these are a couple different ways that you could take action right now and help somebody, well, not only yourself, but somebody else that's in your world. And lastly, I keep saying lastly, but I got another one here, Arthur. Lastly, I would say is come up with a group of like-minded men around you. And that's where meeting other men within the Facebook community, joining something like the Brotherhood, or also forming your own group in your own community and using these podcasts as discussion topics for you guys, right? You guys could choose to go through the activation method together at the same time, so you're on the same journey, or you could just take these podcasts and break them down and talk about it and say, hey, what did you think about that? What did you think about what those guys were talking about on there? Because we're here to deliver information and value in a way that we hope will change your world.
Yeah, it's time for real conversation, guys. We spend too much time chatting about stuff that doesn't really matter, and too little time about stuff that does matter and makes a huge difference. And I think guys are dying out to have that those conversations on these deeper levels. And so if you can be the leader within your group to bring a bunch of guys together to have those deeper conversations, you're not only going to help yourself, but you're going to be helping them as well, because they are all dying to have those conversations. It's just they haven't had them all this time because the structure hasn't been there, society hasn't been there, but it's now well overdue. Guys need support, guys need help. You can be a leader in that, in your own life, in their life, and for sure, get these groups going, or by all means, check us out, because we got our group growing. The Brotherhood is going from strength to strength. We've got amazing men there, entrepreneurs from all walks of life, and the conversations and experiences we are having are just out of this world. Epic. So do something, guys. Just don't do nothing.
Absolutely. Take action. All right, guys, that's a wrap for us and another episode of the Powerful Man Show in the bag. We'll see you next time. Have a great week.